We are definitely an example of the American dream.
That was Shelia Cherfilus-Mccormick in 2022, when she was the first Haitian American from South Florida to win a seat in Congress. Now the Democratic Congresswoman finds herself in trouble with the law. The Department of Justice announcing she was indicted by a federal grand jury in Miami, accusing her of stealing $5 million in federal disaster money. The indictment alleging Cherfilus-Mccormick, 46, and her brother Edwin Cherfilus, 51, both of Miramar, worked through their family health care company on a FEMA-funded COVID-19 vaccination staffing contract in 2021. The company received an overpayment of $5 million in FEMA funds. According to the indictment, the defendants conspired to steal that $5 million and routed it through multiple accounts to disguise its source. The money, prosecutors say, was ultimately used to fund Cherfilus-Mccormick's 2021 run for Congress, disguised as candidate contributions. And she went on to win that race.
We made it.
Cherfilus-Mccormick represents Florida's 20th district, covering parts of Broward and Palm Beach counties. She replaced the late Alcee Hastings, who died of pancreatic cancer and was already under investigation by the House Ethics Committee in Washington, D.C. This indictment also charging an alleged associate, Nadege LeBlanc of Miramar, for helping to arrange the straw donations, as well as her 2021 tax preparer, David K. Spencer, with conspiring to file a false federal tax return. Her attorneys releasing a statement on Wednesday, writing Congresswoman Cherfilus-Mccormick is a committed public servant who is dedicated to her constituents. We will fight to clear her good name.
She was back in the district at this event. We tried again.
I also wanted to ask you about the investigation into your families, but this is also part of her congressional duties. Congresswoman, you know, you're under investigation for the congressional ethics for violation of campaign finances. Congresswoman, this is your district. You have to answer to these people. Congresswoman.
Attorneys for her family's healthcare company aren't answering the I-Team's questions either, and the Department of Emergency Management says they won't comment on ongoing litigation, leaving taxpayers and her constituents wondering what happened to those millions.
What is going on with the Democratic Party right now, especially at the federal level? This has got to be the 6th day in a row that I've done a video on a Democrat that is currently in some kind of scandal. On today's episode, we have South Florida's Congressional House Representative Shelia Cherfilus-Mccormick, who is being federally indicted for stealing $5 million from FEMA. Now, from what I'm able to gather, because there's no publicly available PDF of the actual indictment as of right now, it appears as though she's being charged with 4 different charges. 1 is conspiracy to steal from FEMA, 2, money laundering, 3, illegal campaign contributions, and 4, conspiracy to file a false federal tax form. Now, there are multiple people actually being charged in this, including her brother, Edwin, and a tax advisor, along with a couple other people. And how it came to light is the fact that they actually own a family business that has federal contracts to administer COVID vaccinations. And in that, she was actually hired by another company that was starting to notice that this company of hers was overcharging them. And eventually, they red flagged one for an amount of $5 million. As things came about, it started to notice that her and her brother were actually taking the $5 million and funneling it into multiple accounts, and some of it was actually being used to fund her 2021 special election campaign. Now, if she's fully charged with all 4, she could be facing up to 53 years in prison. But with so many of these people in Congress that are coming out with these scandals and charges and whatnot, the question then becomes to us is, what else are we missing, and how much more corruption is there in Washington?
This congresswoman is facing up to 53 years in prison. Now, she allegedly stole over $5 million of disaster relief funds and laundered that money into her campaign for an election that she won by only 5 votes. That's right, she only won the Democratic nominee in 2021 by 5 votes and is considered one of the closest elections in U.S. history. But guys, there is a much more important thing to discuss here. Why do you think someone would steal $5 million and spend that all on potentially making $174,000 salary. Why wouldn't she just steal the $5 million and disappear? I mean, it seems like that would make a lot more sense, right? Running for public office is a very public thing to do. I mean, people will look into you, so why take such a massive risk with that $5 million? Well, the $5 million wager makes a lot more sense when you realize that the reward isn't a shot at making $174,000. Nancy Pelosi's salary is $174,000, but she's somehow worth $280 million. Mitch McConnell's salary is $174,000, but he's somehow worth $63 million. Have you ever looked at the net worths of our congressmen? Why are they so rich?
And thank you for joining us tonight at 10. I'm Louis Aguirre.
And I'm Janice Fernandez. We want to get right to your top story tonight. Breaking news. A South Florida congresswoman indicted, accused of stealing millions of dollars in federal disaster funds and using the money to support her congressional campaign. Congresswoman Cherfilus-Mccormick now facing federal charges.
She'd already been under investigation by the House Ethics Committee this summer. We have team coverage of the indictment tonight. Local 10's D.C. Bureau Chief Ben Kennedy standing by with reaction from Washington. But we begin with Local 10's Aaron Mabin in Miramar with the charges. Aaron.
Janice and Louis, within the last hour, attorneys for the Congresswoman said they plan to fight to clear her name.
Everybody feels like they're under attack.
Tonight, a federal grand jury indicting Congresswoman Shelia Cherfilus-Mccormick and several associates, accusing them of stealing millions in federal disaster funds, laundering the money, and using part of it to support her 2021 congressional campaign.
The money we invested was to make sure that we can touch the people in the community, but the money didn't determine this election because most people who put a lot of money in the community, in the campaigns, they don't win.
Federal prosecutors say Cherfilus-Mccormick and her brother Edwin Cherfilus ran a FEMA-funded COVID-19 vaccination staffing contract through their family health care company. Prosecutors say in July 2021, the company received a $5 million overpayment. Prosecutors say the group diverted that money and tried to hide it through multiple accounts. The indictment says a large portion of those funds was used for campaign contributions and personal expenses. Prosecutors allege the South Florida Democrat and Nadege LeBlanc arranged additional donations using straw donors, funneling money to friends and relatives who then donated to the campaign as if using their own money. Investigators say the Congresswoman, with the help of her tax preparer, David K. Spencer, filed a false federal tax return, allegedly disguising political spending and personal costs as business deductions. U.S. Attorney Jason Redding Quinones writing public money belongs to the American people. When FEMA funds are diverted for personal or political gain, it erodes trust and harms us all. Attorneys for the Congresswoman writing, she is a committed public servant who is dedicated to her constituents. We will fight to clear her good name.
If convicted, the South Florida Congresswoman could face up to 53 years in prison. The co-defendants could also face decades behind bars. We're live in Miramar tonight. Aaron Mabin, Local 10 News.
Aaron, thank you. Our team coverage now turns to Washington.
Our D.C. Bureau Chief Ben Kennedy is joining us live with the reaction. Ben.
Janice and Lou, the Department of Justice says this action makes clear that no one is above the law and plan to prove their case in court. In a statement, Attorney General Pam Bondi said tonight, using disaster relief funds for self-enrichment is a particularly selfish, cynical crime. No one is above the law, least of all powerful people who rob taxpayers for personal gain. We will follow the facts in this case and deliver justice. With FBI Director Kash Patel adding, this individual and her family allegedly stole money from FEMA and then laundered it through friends towards her own personal benefits, including her campaign accounts. Today, the FBI and partners of the DOJ took action. Right now, Cherfilus-Mccormick serves on the House Committee of Foreign Affairs. It is also assigned to Veteran Affairs. In July, as Louis talked about at the top of the show, the House Ethics Committee voted to reauthorize an investigative subcommittee to examine allegations involving the South Florida Democratic lawmaker. On social media tonight, Florida Congressman Greg Steube said, tomorrow morning I will be filing a privilege motion to censure Representative Cherfilus-Mccormick and remove her from all committees. Tonight, back live here in D.C., she does remain an active member of Congress. In fact, she was reelected in 2024. Her current term ends in January 2027.